Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews Saturday Conversation Show, an interview series where I talk to entertainment personalities, content creators, and filmmakers about their work and love of film. Today's guest is Jesse V. Johnson, British filmmaker whose early career as a stuntman on various box office hits from Total Recall to The Amazing Spider-Man led to a career directing hard-edge and visceral action movies. Jesse's latest film, Thieves Highway, stars Aaron Eckhart as a livestock agent who confronts a group of dangerous rustlers and releases December 12th in select theaters and video on demand. And I highly recommend people that if there is a listing near you at a theater to watch it on the big screen. Aaron Eckhart gives a terrific performance. I really love the craft in the movie. The film is really a old school action thriller with great craft again, and delivers again upon Jesse's dedication to create entertaining genre cinema. And I'm glad to say that Jesse joins me right now. Jesse, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very good. Thank you for having me on, Matt.
No, not at all. Thank you so much for joining me. I want to talk a bit about Thieves Highway before we get into other parts of your career, because it's a really interesting subject, this film, because rustling is like such a big kind of problem that's been happening for a while now in the US. Here in Australia as well, we have a big problem with cattle thefts. Only like last month up in the Northern Territory, one man was arrested and fined for stealing 116 heads of cattle. So that's like a big number right there. So it happens all around. When was the first time you kind of came across this multi-million dollar issue, and what was the kind of the spark, the impetus to kind of want to direct a film like based around uh, um, criminals who are doing these kind of acts? Because usually in action films you have like you're just sort of drug dealers, your hitman, but this is like a very real issue, and it's something that I think will resonate with a lot of people when they watch it come on December 12th.
I hope so. I hope so. It's theatrical December the 12th and then VOD December the 16th in the US.
Okay.
So uh, I knew very, very little about it beyond what I had, seen in the old cowboy movies before I got the script. The script was written by Travis Mills and JD Pepper, who Travis was producing a TV show that I was directing on in Hungary and Italy. And he kept telling me, I've got this script I think you'll like. I've got this script I think you'll like. He knew about my love for the Western genre and, that world. And when I read it, I felt the same way you did. It was a subject that I didn't know very much about. I didn't know it was still as problematic as it was in the 1800s. And so I did a lot of research on it, a lot of documentaries, and they're just heartbreaking. You see these farmers in the Midwest and the the bread bowl, of America who put their entire lives into the building of a great herd and a sustainable business and enterprise, and it can be decimated, destroyed, absolutely wiped out with one fairly well coordinated, but in many cases they're just meth heads, that either work for the farmer or drove by and saw the cows and have a little bit of a background in that. But one well coordinated strike can just wipe out a farmer, years, decades of work. They talk about a cow being $5,000, $6,000. That's the cost of buying it. But what the farmer has is an investment in that cow year after year after year. It's 7, 8 years old, and he's bought it then and fed it for 8 years and cared for it and carved it. And, you're talking about an enormous undertaking. And then these bandits need to go to a no-brand state, which is a state where you can, as long as you sign an affidavit saying it's your cow, you can sell it and get the full amount of money for it. And there's nothing else you can do that with. If you take a motorcycle or a car or even a piece of agricultural, implement like a tractor, it's still got a VIN number on it, which is the code that's on the framework, which will trace back to the owner. You have to exchange pink slips when you sell these things. So you can never really sell a stolen item, a gun or a car for the same amount that you can sell a stolen cow for, which makes no sense whatsoever. But it is, and that's the way it is. I mean, you could perhaps put a chip in there, but they'd figure out a way of taking the chip out or burning it out. Or, they have things called running irons, which are a brand, which is sort of a single curve on it, and you can heat that up and you can deform a brand on a cow and make it look like something else or just a scar. So there's all these sort of really basic, very, very rudimentary, in many cases, uh, 200, 100-year-old methods of tricking and tricking the law. And these guys are doing it, and people are losing an immense amount. And So I felt it was a timely script and it was a subject matter that I hadn't heard much about. It was a little bit touched on in Yellowstone TV, but the two are very different sort of ways of approaching the same material. And so I thought it would be something interesting. I also happen to know that Aaron Eckhart lives on a mile and a half of river, which and property he has, he leases out to cattle, cattle herders and breeders, and so he's very aware of that life. He sometimes goes out and helps with the roundups. So I didn't know, I hoped it would appeal to him, and sent the script to him, and he enjoyed it and saw it for what I saw it for as well, which was a way to tell an action story that was popular, popular, sort of action. Everyone likes it, but against the background of something which was a little bit more important, a little bit more serious, and perhaps open some people's eyes to what was going on. You don't make movies to tell messages, but when you actually have something like that, it sort of helps, and it helps us all sort of keep our eyes on the target and make sure we stick to making the best film possible. Most
And
authentic film possible, should I say?
yes. And Aaron Eckhart is fantastic. I've long been a fan of Aaron's. I think the first time I saw him, he had a supporting role in a movie called The Pledge. It was a Sean Penn movie with Jack Nicholson starred in it, and he was in that. And ever since I saw him in that film, I always just watch whatever. He's one of those guys, one of those actors where if he's in it, I'm gonna like watch it because I always loved his stuff. And what I really love about your films is the way that you cast your leading parts, especially your leading men. And I've heard you say before that like casting is 80% of the work, and other filmmakers I've talked to have the same, have the same philosophy as well. When it comes to your leading men, though, Aaron Eckhart, who this is the second time you've worked with him now, Scott Atkins, you've worked with numerous times, Thomas Jane, so many others. There's something refreshingly old school about them. They have this thing about them. There's a certain kind of a toughness towards them, but also kind of like they kind of exhibit, and it's something that Aaron's character or Frank in this movie has. He exhibits a sort of at times a vulnerability, but like the honor to him as well. And I find that in a lot of your other characters you have as well. There's like that's why I call it refreshingly old school, because there's a moral impetus to a lot of these characters that you have in your movies. Is that something that you kind of that you do because you've grown up kind of watching similar kind of movies when you were younger, and maybe seeing other characters, action stars kind of exhibiting the same traits, and you want to like keep that kind of those traits alive in your movies as well?
Uh, I don't think it's necessarily the latter. I'm not, I mean, I love older movies where there is, the characters are deeply moralistic or flawed or trying their hardest to be as moral as possible and having conflicts with that. I think for the most part, I am looking at something that's going to keep my attention for a year, something that I'm going to feel good about, and your leading man, the character, the moral code has to be, his compass has to be calibrated pretty accurately. I like that. I want to know that I'm in the company of someone who has something beyond. He's not gonna quickly grab a pile of money when no one's watching. Kind of, there's something going on that's interesting, and I do like that, and I do require that. I do know that there are scripts that I'm getting at the moment where you read within the first 3 or 4 pages, you're like, yeah, this is just too grim and dark, and no one's got any morals. Everyone's out to tread on the next guy and grab what they can, and those kind of characters just don't appeal to me. So I think there's obviously something that I haven't analyzed it at great length about what it is that I particularly like, but I know what I don't like, which is characters with no moral bearing whatsoever. Uh, I even like a twisted set of morals. If you've got your own code and the guys live by that code, it can be anachronistic and outdated. But if it's a code that they believe in enough and they stick to that, then there's something interesting in that too. So I'm not saying it's about being squeaky clean or particularly too righteous. But I think the characters have to have something more than just what you're seeing, and it's always good to have, to create something that you could peel back the onion layers on and see, right, well, he's here doing this and staying up late and determined to do this work out in the field because he's lost this huge other part of his life. In the case of Frank, the character that Aaron plays, and the reason he spends so much time in such a terribly paid job, working such long hours out in the field, is because he just the more time he spends around the house where he lost, he lived with his wife who he lost, the more painful it is for him. And I found that interesting because I'm always curious about what drives people. I read a lot of biographies and history books, and you know, I want to know what it is, what part of the human condition it is that drives a man to just keep going, whether they're a special forces soldier. I did that training, and the biggest problem there is your mental stamina, not the physical. The physical is there. You train, you're 18, 19 years old, but what keeps you going? And these questions of what, it's something that some people have, not men or women, because we both have it, but there's something, a biting drive that is, the fire in the belly of some men and women where it isn't in others, and they're content to sleep the day through and watch the television until they grow old. And there's nothing wrong necessarily with those people, but there's something, and I want to make movies about the former, someone who's driven by something. They can be a criminal, but they can still be driven by something. And I think Aaron's character in Thieves Highway has that drive. It's a drive that goes beyond wanting to see right and wrong, which he does have. It's a drive that he just has to be out in the field doing something right, and I like that. And so I'm drawn to those kind of characters. So to answer your question, now that I've fleshed it out, I think it's the characters that are in the script that draw me more than any great allegiance to film history, which I like too. But it's, who am I reading about? Who am I going to spend the next 90 minutes with in a darkened room? Hopefully people are going to theaters, or even in my living room. Who is going to hold the attention of the audience so they don't change channel and skim or check their phone and doom scroll while they're watching my movie? That's the responsibility of the filmmaker, by the way, not the audience member. The audience member is what he is. You've got to make movies that grab their attention. If they're coming for a particular kind of film, you've got to give them that. So characters, that would be my answer to that.
Hi guys, Matt here from Matt's Movie Reviews, letting you know that the Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel has launched channel membership. This provides exclusive videos and other cool stuff as well for all channel members. It's under one tier, one price, and with that one price you get exclusive reviews. For example, I'll be going through the American Film Institute's top 100 movies, so every week I'll do a new review based on that movie list. You can get exclusive reviews based on your requests. Request a movie review and I will review it for you. You'll also get exclusive content for behind the scenes stuff as well. You also get exclusive interviews that I haven't posted yet as part of my podcast, like older interviews with Academy Award winners and other great filmmakers and actors as well, and a bunch of other cool stuff as well. I hope you can all join up, be part of this great experience I have an offer for you. Support indie content creators, support a movie critic like myself who is trying to make it through the content creator space. Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel memberships. Please join and get some great exclusive content. I want to move on to this game I like to play with my guests. It's called Choose Between Two. Essentially, Jesse, I'm going to give you two names or two movies or what have you, and you get to choose one and just kind of talk a little bit about your choice. Are you ready to play?
Absolutely.
First one, Clint Eastwood or John Wayne? Who's your favorite movie cowboy between the two?
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna have to take. I'd be in trouble with my conscience if I chose one of those over the other. I have the good, the bad, and the ugly in my kitchen. That's
Hmm.
an original 1960s one, and I have John Wayne tattooed on my arm. So I love those guys, but they're so very, very different. One was a result of this. His movies, his greatest movies were the 60s through to the 70s, and the other one was, his greatest movies were the 30s through to the 50s. So they represent different sides of the same coin, this coin of Janus. So I would be very hard pressed to choose between the two. It would depend on what time of day it was. If I was feeling, I go back to the Eastwood movies, but again, as an actor, as a director, he's his own artist. But as an actor, the films that he worked with Don Siegel or Sergio Leone are extraordinary, and they represent a huge part of my artistic fabric, they're very conscious of my decision-making process when I'm making movies inadvertently. Obviously, not you don't go, oh, what would it happen in Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? But it's there. It's like Mad Max, The Road Warrior. It's in there, and there's nothing you can do about it because that was where you were at 13, 14 years old when you're at that impressionable age. But then you have John Wayne and the pictures he did with Ford, with Hawks, with Raoul Walsh, and you have something else altogether. You have the very beginnings of action cinema and the way that movies became what we know them as today. And those films are poetry. You know, the American poetry is the motion picture, as far as I'm concerned. You know, England has its Tennyson and Keats and you know Coleridge and all that kind of stuff. But in America, you have the motion picture and John Ford at the very pinnacle of that spearhead. And something like The Search is or even Stagecoach in its own way. If you're talking Wayne, you know they're hallowed ground. So I wouldn't want to choose between two gods. I might get in trouble. You know. So
Next
I'm
one
going
might
to.
be next one might be hard as well. The Seven Samurai or the Magnificent Seven?
No, that's an easier one for me. The Seven Samurai on every level, from Fumio Harasaki's composition, Kurosawa's directing, of course, to the way it was shot and lit, and you know, just the amazing story you have going on there. It's incredible, just a wonderful masterpiece. Again, one I go back to when I need a kick in the pants and to remind myself that you know this media does have a way of touching people beyond just a visceral thrill of blood spatter. The this Magnificent Seven is a wonderful film too. John Sturges at his very strongest, you know, Bad Day, Black Rock, Magnificent Seven, and there's a handful of pictures there that were sublimely wonderful examples of great studio directing. You know, Great Escape as well, I would put in there as well. Just wonderful craftsmanship at the highest level, incredible casting. I've read a lot on Sturges. It's difficult to find books on him. It's difficult to find research on him. But you think of something like Bad Day and Black Rock, and that entire street was built out in the desert. The train tracks laid. I believe that actually maybe there was an old train track there, and they built the entire town. To have that kind of power and weight, and to fight for that is, you know, because he didn't want extras. He didn't want people standing around. He wanted to put all the money into this empty town. To do that is something extraordinary. And it wasn't a standing set. It was not a low budget film. This guy went out there and spent a lot of studio money making what's almost an art film. It has some action scenes in it. It's certainly not an action movie. If you know, and I find that, people don't realize the kind of risk involved with that. You know, doing it with a studio. A one-armed action hero played by an aging Spencer Tracy.
Mm.
It's amazing what he pulled off. So, not to take away from Sturges with the Magnificent Seven, but for me, the Seven Samurai is you know a masterwork. It's sort of somewhere around the Bible of
Next one,
film
you're watching a film. What type of visual effects do you like to see? CGI or practical effects?
practice.
Is that the same when it comes to
Practical,
filmmaking as well?
yeah, yeah. And it's not some weird kind of like Luddite desperation to be able to say, "Hi, I did it with practical. Here's my behind the scene." All that's absolute BS salesmanship. Just another way of selling your product. Why practical is good is because ultimately we're working with actors who have to convey through their eyes and through their performance uh, what the audience is going to take away, what emotion the audience is going to take away. And actors are primarily reactors. What you're seeing when you say, "Oh my God, that was some great acting," it's actually that was some great reacting, is what you mean to say. And if you give them the tools to do that, if you know, give Anthony Hopkins a castle to look out over 700 extras, his performance is going to be different to if he's standing in a motion capture stage wearing a skin tight nylon leotard, uh, talking about a film that I worked on and, you know, talking to Anthony Hopkins, you know. If you give them a gun that is firing blanks and making a sound and is slightly dangerous, you know, with blanks, even with blanks and cases coming out, and they've got to think about what they're doing and the chance of getting burned or even, you know, just getting a splinter. it affects the performance if they're driving a car, if they're steering and you have a camera on them, they do things very differently. Steve McQueen didn't tell jokes in Bullet. He didn't laugh. He didn't lean across and yell out the window at the car he was driving because he was absolutely focused on not crashing at
Yeah.
80 miles an hour going down the street. There is a enormous indefinable gulf between that and when you see Vin Diesel driving a car in a green screen, where he's, playing with cards and looking out the window and playing, and the audience realizes that, and they know they're seeing animation. They know they're seeing a computer game. They're, some kids playing around a table pretending to do something, as opposed to someone doing something that's genuinely putting himself in jeopardy. So my reasons for practical are not to scare or put the actors through anything, difficult, but to make the film a better experience to watch, one that's easier to invest in, one that's easier to jump out of your seat on, be scared by, be moved by, fall in love with the characters, get respect for the characters, all these wonderful things that tie together, So yes, every day and any day of the week, I would go practical if possible, if it's not going to harm, put anyone's lives in danger.
You're at home watching a movie. Do you like physical media or streaming?
I collect physical media. I have very little interest in streaming. It breaks up the picture and and get fragments in it. And I sometimes will take a while to watch a movie. One I really love, I'll go back to, and you can never find this stuff on streaming. They change their mind, it goes somewhere else, and one station stops selling it, and then you get a compressed version that's been cut. It's a load of old crap, and it's not for movie lovers. It's a huge. Now I went into Best Buy and said, "Where have all your DVDs and Blu-rays gone?" They said, "Oh, the TV companies that also own the streaming companies that own the TVs have told us to stop selling those."
Yeah.
It's just you're being coerced into buying into some other brand's product. No, DVDs and Blu-rays. I would recommend anyone arguing, oh, it's fine on VOD or whatever. Go out and get a Blu-ray of any of the black and white masterworks, say Maltese Falcon or The Big Sleep or Lifeboat, and watch it Blu-ray remastered on your big screen TV, and you'll never argue about streaming being good again. The difference is night and day. It's not even worth me trying to sell it. Do it and you will love it, and you will be, so if you have any interest in watching high quality, people who like fast cars, well-made cars, people who like nice food, they should like good movies and watching the movie in the best form possible. They've usually spent a lot of money on a big screen TV. Why you wouldn't, I don't know.
Last
People are
one
easily
in
led.
this last one in this choose between two. You're at the cinema, you're sitting down. What's your go-to snack? Popcorn or candy?
Uh, don't really like eating during movies because I like to focus on what's going on, but I'll sometimes steal some popcorn from my wife, but
Fair
not candy.
enough.
I don't do shit.
Um,
So
I read that when you were younger, you were incredibly like obsessed with films. Like, in before you even had like a VHS in the home, you just collected movie magazines on sci-fi, horror, what have you. Just had all these stuff
I do
and just
research. Oh,
slaved
yes.
over it. Um, where did that obsession kind of come from? Where did that kind of that kind of spark came in regards to your love of film at such a young age?
Don't know. I no, I tried to watch them on TV and I wasn't allowed to, too violent or whatever. And actually, the one I specifically have remembered all this time is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Trying to sneak in to watch that, it was done late and being told it was too violent for me to watch. Too much. Actually, I watched the sequence at the beginning, and then Tuka, I think, kills someone. At that point, my mother, who was a single mother doing her best to bring up a kid the best she could, grabbed me by the back of the collar and pulled me out. So that's it.
Hmm.
So, and I think maybe being told not to see something like is the is the germ of needing to see it later on. I don't know, but I love them. They were a form. I read a lot of comic books. Watching the early Leone pictures and Road Warrior, you're basically seeing with the big crash zooms and close-ups, cutting back to these epic wide angles, which by the way are extraordinarily elegant and beautifully shot. You are learning that a film can be an exciting, interesting visual experience. You don't really need to understand of a lot of what's being said, and a lot of the time there's very little dialogue anyway, and you're whisked up into this world. And as a young man, that living in extremely bucolic south of England with very, very boring. This was the most amazing experience, and I loved it. And it set and you know, bought movie magazines like crazy, but mainly from antique shops where they had the stack of 1950s and 40s and 60s ones, like uh, Film Weekly and Film Journal, and those, a little bit of the Cahiers de Cinema, but that was difficult. French film magazines were cool because the pictures were great, and they had film annuals. I don't know, you look a lot younger than me, but they would have published film annuals, which are sort of hardbacks associated with the magazines, and I had
Yep,
stacks of those going on,
I love those. Yeah.
1950s and Western annuals, war film annuals, and again, French film ones, we get in England, you find them around the place, and I see pictures from the samurai and start to slowly put all of this stuff together in your mind. And it was an interesting way of learning about the movies. And then you know, when VHS, it wasn't until I was in my, sort of late teens that I managed to start gathering the VHSs. And you'd hunt down people like Masaki Kobayashi and find out, the human condition, which took me a long time, which is 3 movies, 7 hours of him going to war in China, and then after the end of the Second World War, coming back from China, and it's just the most amazing story. And from that, you discover Kwaidan or Harakiri or Last Samurai, and these are just such remarkably well made, imaginative, beautifully produced films that it was difficult not to be sort of impressed by them and led a certain direction. So I think it was through those just seeing the imagery and being hypnotized by how wonderful it was.
You spoke about your love of the good, the bad, and the ugly. You showed like the what's in your poster, all that kind of stuff, and everything. Is it true that your uncle Vic Armstrong, who's an infamous stuntman, he got you a video camera, and you and your friends replicated good, the bad, and the ugly on the video camera?
Yeah. Well, I had a VHS camera, but it was terrible. It was always tracking problems, and he had a Betamax camera, one that it had the wire, and you carried the shoulder rig, and it was really good quality. And I kept borrowing that all the time. I damaged it at one point, and he got really mad at me, and I wasn't allowed it after that. But we shot so much footage on that, and yes, we did. We replicated the Fistful of Dollars, the gunfight in that, shot for shot, with blank guns and everyone dressed up as cowboys. Yes, I did. That's true. And we shot a lot of other movies as well and put them together and edited them. It's a brilliant way of learning, and learning, is just to make movies. It's fantastic. And he had quite a lot of real estate in England with woods, and we'd regularly get chased off it because we were setting off explosions and gun battles and that sort of thing. Really, I think there was a period there where they didn't know if I was going to be a criminal or actually go into the motion picture industry. And I think actually I have a report card from my teacher saying that Jesse is a very poor footballer, but possibly make a very fine criminal. And my mum was very proud of that one. But anyway,
How soon did martial arts come in your life? Because I read, was it Lao Gao Kung Fu? Is that the Kung Fu that you were a practitioner in?
never I loved it. I studied a lot of them for a little while. Watched Bruce Lee, 14, 13, somewhere in there. And then Lao Ga I discovered and really got into that 14, and that was being taught at the local leisure center. And I think I went 2 or 3 nights a week and just absolutely loved it. But it's a very good thing for a young man to do that, because you want, you have all these tests to yourself, and to get into the ring with gloves on and get knocked on your backside and realize, oh, I'm not as tough as I thought I was. I think it's very good. It's very useful and very helpful. It's also good to keep fit and stay out of, to know that you're choosing not to go out partying and drinking because you want to stay fit enough to compete at the weekend. I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing for young men to do. I don't know if I was a very good martial artist. I did compete at a certain level, but I lost a lot of fights, which is probably more character building than it is anything else. But it was it was good. My mother came to see one, and that was a pretty epic, and it ended up being quite bloody as well. I bled all over the place, and it was she begged me not to ever do it again. But that interest in it stayed, and making starting my career in martial arts seemed like the perfect thing. I'm very, very grateful for those films. They really gave me the ability to make directing my career. I was making films for the first time. I'd made a whole bunch of gangster movies before that that did okay, but then I went back to stunt work because I couldn't pay the bills. And then suddenly I did this series of sort of films over a period of 3 or 4 years with Scott, Tony Jaa, and others. And uh, I was now, I woke up one morning and realized I was no longer doing stunt work. It was just directing work and script work that was paying the bills. And this is a wonderful thing. So I will always have an incredibly warm place in my heart for the martial arts genre. Am I interested in doing another one? No, not in the slightest bit. It's for me, after doing 6 or 7 of them, actually more than that probably, and trying to come up with a reason why two men need to fight without guns with martial arts. You're right. Basically, each movie you're just trying to come up with another reason that can make that organic. And I think I've tapped the well as many times as I can. I'd end up repeating myself, and this is something I really don't want to do. Now, martial arts in a quick scene where it happens, but a martial arts movie where it's predominantly martial arts every 8 to 10 minutes. No, it's tough for me to go back. But I'm very grateful to those pictures and to Scott Adkins and to the guys I work with. I want to work with him again as well. I think he's a tremendous actor who has a far more going on than just being able to do a high kick, and I think he believes that as well.
Not to say though that you're not going to do fight scenes again, because Thieves Highway has got a cracker of a fight scene in it between Aaron Eckhart and Michael
Oh,
Ferragamo. I loved that fight scene. Number one, I love that I can see it. I can't stand, and something that I really appreciate about your movies is that I think something that happened around the time when you were ascending with your films with Scott. I think Paul Greengrass was around doing films around the same time, the Bourne films, and a lot of that shaky cam stuff was going on. And I think something a lot of people really appreciate about your movies and the way that you approach fight scenes is that you can actually see the choreography in the fists and everything. And when you explain it with the sound effects, it's just mwah, chef's kiss, beautiful. And I thought that way with this Aaron Eckhart fight scene. I mean, Aaron, I've seen him do fight scenes before. He's a very physical actor, and I just absolutely love what him and Michael did in this movie and how it all came together.
they're great. There was a good fight scene that one. It's nasty water as well. They
Yeah.
did good with that. Uh, Erin is tremendous. Of I've worked with a lot of very physically powerful actors. Been very lucky. Scott's a beast. He's like a walking visual effect. What he can pull off with his physical. Aaron is also extraordinarily physical and one of the most disciplined human beings, both through his work and his acting as well as his physical side and being able to use guns the way he uses them, drive cars. I mean, it's really impressive working with him. And I think that fight scene nearly beat those two up. I mean, they were almost done. It was I think I did call we call rap when we finished doing it because they were both spent.
Mm.
It was really tough. My choreographer, Luc Lafontaine, who I've worked with for 20 years or so, just did a marvelous job of doing that. I explained what I wanted, where the emotional beats were, both tired. Aaron wants to stop it, punches, knocks him down and says, "Stay down." The young guy gets up, and we realize he's also got a fair amount of skill as well. It started out very skillful. By the end of it, it was really messy because they were just exhausted. And in many ways, I felt that was better and more organic looking.
Yes.
But yes, the
Yeah.
guys did really good. Thank you very much for noticing that. And I'll make sure that Mike and Aaron and Luca are aware that you've complimented them.
I love me a good fight scene, especially like a good kind of like just old-fashioned brawl kind of thing like that. Good, and I love Aaron's
It's good.
punches as well. I think they're really effective the way he does them in the film. Um, is it
Telegram.
true that
Yeah,
your uncle got you work on Total Recall when you were only 16 years old? Is that correct?
absolutely. Yeah.
Oh wow!
But you
So
you
how
have
does
to you
it?
have to understand. I had to get
So
a letter from my headmaster. I left school at 14. I was
right.
I was done. I found it quite stifling. I was quite unpleasant and big-headed and went off into the world at 14. So I'd already been out there hustling like crazy. I'd worked as a PA on Nightbreed. I'd worked as a PA on Getting It Right with Randall Kleiser directing, who did Grease and Blue Lagoon. I was out there working, and then Vic had asked. Well, there was a little problem with trying to join the army in there, so, but that was we'll go into that another time. But Vic had asked, and I'd said absolutely, get me out there, let's do it. And I
Hmm.
flew out and in Mexico City, and worked on that for quite a number of weeks. And you actually see my face. It's the second shot from the end. I have a very stupid hat on, as they're all looking at at the sky because the glass has collapsed inwards and oxygen has come in, and it pans right across my face. And I was really impressed because Paul Verhoeven used music to get the effect out of all of the act because there were so many people there. It was in Mexico City, so half of them didn't speak English. He spoke, Dutch and English. And so they played this wonderful music and everyone's performances looked fabulous. And that was quite an impact on a young Jesse, that one. But yeah, yeah.
I mean, the credits in regards to your stunt work are incredibly impressive. List of films, Charlie's Angels, Mission Impossible 3, I mentioned Spider-Man, Beowulf, a whole bunch of them. It is what's really, really interesting lately. I say maybe the last, I don't know, decade or so, maybe less, is how stunts and stunt performers are getting much more recognition and appreciation in the mainstream kind of like movie fandom. To the point now, I'm pretty sure that the Oscars are going to be introducing the best stunts category soon, as a part of their ceremony. What's your take on
Yeah.
all of that and seeing now that how stunt performers and stunts in general is seen and appreciated as much as an art form as anything else within the filmmaking process?
There's obviously multiple answers to that. The first is that it's baffling to me that stunt guys weren't treated with more credibility as up and coming directors before John
Yeah.
Wick. The reason is because, it, well, we've done second units for the longest time. You had a film that fell apart. You put the stunt coordinator, second unit director, and he'd take over. That was the guy that would commonly take over a film. Action sequences needed to be built up. In many cases, a lot of these films were 80% second unit, with 20% left to some waffling guy with a beret on trying to, take credit for the rest of it. And so it's something that's been there for a long time. So it surprised me always that stuntmen weren't given better credibility. When I got to the States, which would have been 93, 2 or somewhere in there, Craig Baxley was directing movies. Terry Leonard had just directed the movie. And so it was an attempt, but the films just were not cerebral enough. They felt a little B movie-ish, big explosions and everything over the top. And I think what's happened is the scripts that are being given to these former stuntmen and stunt arrangers are a lot higher quality. John Wick was a wonderful script. Atomic Blonde is an incredible script, and so you are then able to apply this expertise to that. You have something wonderful. So it's never obvious. It's never like, oh, he's a second unit director, he's going to be a good director. That's not the case at all. It's these guys could be a second unit director who's more used to working with vehicles and setting up fight scenes via VVs, which is nothing like directing at all. You basically make a Meccano set where you shoot it in a place and then you follow the video. If you try and do that with an actor, the actors are going to lose interest in you very, very quickly. So it's not an obvious thing, but certainly there's been some really good movies just recently that have been directed by directors that have made a lot of money, by former stuntmen that have made a lot of money and been very successful. So it's as good a time as any uh, to make that break, I guess. I guess I'm kind of digging it. It's good to watch. It doesn't affect me necessarily. I guess in some pitch meetings it's sort of quite helpful, whereas at one time it was not necessarily helpful. Who knows? I don't know. You still got to make a movie at the end of it that's good.
It's true. I want to
I'm a
move
long
on to
way.
another. Yes. The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Amazon Prime Video. One of the best on-demand streaming services available, Amazon Prime Video features exclusive Amazon originals as well as popular movies and TV shows. Watch Amazon Prime Video anytime, anywhere. I want to move on to another game I like to play called Rapid Fire Questions. So the rules are in the name. I'm going to throw some questions your way. So try to answer the first thing that comes in your mind, and then you can speak more about it if you'd like to. So the first question, Jesse, favorite Sam Peckinpah movie?
Uh, Bring me the head of Alfredo Garcia.
Underrated. I think a lot of people say Wild Bunch because that's kind of, I don't know, it's more to kind of like the
Better
mainstream
movie.
favorite, but
Well,
that's a great
better
movie.
movie.
Yeah.
Billy the Kid, better movie. Ride the High Country, far better movie than all of them. But Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia is such a personal, uh, unpleasant, angry scream of a movie that it appeals to me on a visceral level. It's a film that any other director wouldn't have been able to make. It's literally the thumbprint, the genetic makeup of Sam Peckinpah is on view to see in that film. Is it a pleasant movie to watch? Not in the slightest. I wouldn't even watch it with my wife. You know, but because of what it is, its DNA is something really valuable. And for me, it's interesting to go back to once in a while. But it's not a clean movie. It's not a well-made movie. It's not even particularly well-acted movie. But it is something very, very unique and something that sticks with me. And on the Peckinpah catalog, for me, that's the one that's the most interesting, personal, and the ones that I find myself going back to more often. But I love the Wild Bunch and I love the other pictures. I think they're wonderful. I'm going to watch Ballad of Cable Hogue tonight because I've been reading Max Evans' account of the making of that movie. So I want to go really revisit it.
Next one. Do you have a favorite fight scene in the film?
A favorite fight scene in a film. I think it would probably be in one of the Raiders movies. I think those fight scenes were so good, and those were Vic, arranging with the other guys. Probably the fight scene in the Marion's bar at the beginning of Raiders, which ends with the
Mm,
burning, the guy picking up the thing and it burns onto his hand. It's just
yeah.
such a beautifully put together one. I watched it again just recently on the big screen here at the house, and the misses are terrible. I mean, by today's standards, it's a very basic bit of choreography, but the sound effects and the emotion, what you're watching, and the story whips you up into such a frenzy. It's really brilliant, really good stuff. There's some good stuff in that one. I like the fight and the chase to the marketplace and the as well at the end with the Pat Roach, with the Terry Richards getting shot with the revolver when he swung the sword. There's some good stuff, but that fight scene at Marion's bar is pretty cool. They've had the drinking competition just prior to it. It's very somber emotion as he's there. He appears. It's so beautifully done, so well put together.
I watched that film
But or
recently.
the or the fight man. That's another one.
No, okay, that's a good one too. I watched that
Yeah.
Raiders recently with my kids. It was the first time they watched it. I thought they were old enough to be able to handle it, and they absolutely loved it. And
How'd
I
they take to the
remember.
melting? Yeah.
Yeah, they love the whole thing. I mean, we watch a lot of old school films. Like my kids, my older son especially loves like Toho movies, like kaiju movies from the 60s and 70s and such. And he makes his own stop motion now stuff on his own computer. So like how when you were a kid making, you're replicating Good, the Bad, and Ugly. He's making his own characters and out of clay and cardboard and making his own stop motion stuff. So now they're old enough now. My oldest is 13, my youngest is 10, but I'm kind of introducing them to films that that kind of not too violent and such, but like Raiders level kind of films now. And just watching the film again because it's been a little while, and I love that film. You kind of you relive the film again for your kids in a kind of way, which is funny. And
That's the one.
the fight scenes in that movie, my favorite one was the one where Indiana's fighting that really big German guy around a plane when the plane's going around in the field. Love that one as well. It was
Yeah,
really good.
fantastic.
Um,
Great stuff. Pretty good.
do you have a favorite stunt in a movie that you've watched?
Favorite stunt. I love the car chase in Bullet and the car stunts in that and the driving in that. I think is just so well done. The way it's shot, the way it's put together. There's some brilliant stuff in there. So, but that would be a stunt sequence. A singular favorite stunt. Uh, there's just myriad of sort of moments that stick in my head. There's some good stuff. Uh, I think the jump across in the man with the golden gun is pretty amazing with the car that does the corkscrew over the river in
Right.
Thailand or where it is. That's one I like. So a lot of the Bond ones I think are pretty good. The car stuff I think is great. Vic's done some amazing stuff on the Indiana Jones movies, and I was there for the third one because that was the first set that I was on. I was carrying his bag at 14. I just left high school, and they were shooting at Elstree Studios, so I'd carry his bag, and I got to watch a lot of that stuff happen. The interior, the tank
Wow.
sequence was all there at Elstree. Uh, yeah, no, there's some amazing, amazing stuff. Maybe Yakima Canutt going under the stagecoach in Stagecoach,
Right.
1939. It's pretty amazing stuff. He was a very interesting cat. I just bought his biography, and he was responsible for an awful lot that quite indicative at the times. Never got any credit because the director would get all the credit or the actor. But yeah, probably those ones. The chase that he put together, the race that he put together in Ben-Hur, the chariot race is
Yes.
believable. I watched that just recently on Blu-ray, and it was my I had to go back and watch it two, three, four times to really take in what I had just seen. It was just unspeakably good. I mean, really, really cinema at its absolute purest. Very, very little trickery, a teeny, teeny little bit of trickery in there, but you're seeing what you're seeing, and the choice of angles is so mouth-watering and so good. So I mean, Yakima Canutt's got to be right up there with his work as a stunt man. So it's not a exact answer to your question, but hopefully it suffices.
And last one, excuse me, in this rapid fire, and this is perhaps the most important question you'll probably hear today, let alone the year. Um, Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
absolutely.
All right. All right. It's okay.
Love it. Love
I want to move on, just want to talk about your
it. With that. So, I was making a joke about your expression. Sorry about that. We should talk some more
No.
about Thieves Highway as well, if we can. I think,
Um, I just want to
unless you
go on about talk about something that I noticed in your career, your directing career, your filmography. It seems to me there's pre and post Savage Dog in your filmography. And from what I've read, like but before you hit Savage Dog, um, you were at a point in your life where you kind of weren't making money, you went back to stunts. You did a trio of films in that time. So you did Lincoln with Spielberg, Thor with Brenner, and The Master with Paul Thomas Anderson, which is a murderer's row of just three films right there, right? And from what I've read,
Green Hornet at the same
those
time as well with Michel
there we go.
Gondry's Green Hornet. I was working on that at night and doing Thor during the day and sleeping at lunch. So 2 hours a night. It was ridiculous. Really not something you should ever do.
And from what I read, like being in those films, it kind of invigorated your love for directing. Am I correct in that assumption?
It's it started out as I was not only just a stuntman. I wasn't a stunt coordinator and assistant stuntman. I was absolutely low because I'd have to ask my family and friend coordinators to get me back on after I'd been out of the game for a bit. And I'm older. I'm not in the same kind of shape that I had been. And so you didn't get to do any of the stunts. You were putting boxes together and taking them apart. It was listen, the pay is good. You're a union stuntman, so there's no complaining about that. But you're absolutely the bottom level. So you're watching what's going on and just trying to keep your head down and make sure you get called back for the next week and stay in there. Uh, I it was sobering. It was I learned about humility and I learned about ego a lot more than I had. But I got to watch some of the most magnificent directors working, and it didn't come instantly as, oh my God, this is a great way. It sort of slowly bled into it. And it wasn't until really looking back and focusing on it, I realized that was perhaps the most valuable 2.5, 3 years you've ever had. I didn't go to film school. I apprenticeships with some directors as a PA or a stuntman. You never see what's going on. But because I was a little older and could talk a little better, they put me next to the director on these pictures to sort of coordinate with the stunt guys and coordinate a little bit what was going on. Not stunt coordinate, but help relay information. Let's put it that way. Let's use a better term. But it allowed me to watch the process of Kenneth Branagh, to watch the process of Spielberg, to watch the process of these guys that were at a level that you wouldn't normally be allowed so close, and to see what's going on and how the mind works and the decisions they were making and what those decisions were based upon, as opposed to what my decision making process as a low budget filmmaker been basically looking at the budget and figuring out how I could make films to work within that budget. Whereas these guys were like, no, how can I make the absolute best film possible? Uh, Now, and we'll figure out a way to do the budget. It's just the mindset, and it just changed everything completely for me. And it was very, very valuable. I don't know how you would ever replicate that for anyone else trying to do it. I got very extraordinarily, and also James Cameron in there, Garrett Warren, who's my dear friend, is Cameron's second unit director and coordinator, and I worked on both Avatar films in there too. Uh, well, the first one and then the second one much later. But it's like, this is incredible. This is a gift from the cinematic gods to be able to watch these guys because they are the very best at what they do. And so yes, it was extraordinarily uh, an extraordinarily productive thing for me to do, even though at first it seemed like the absolute bottom of the barrel. Oh my God, I'd given away my stunt bag. I'd asked for it back from the person I'd given it to, my pads and and everything in it. So it was an interesting period. Uh, Whether that's the reason those films are different, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think another profound thing that happened, if I'm absolutely honest with you, is I made a black and white film, which I thought was fantastic, uh, but it made no money whatsoever and left me owing money at the end of it. And so for 3 years, I'm out of work, and I realized what I really need to be doing is making films that please the audience, that they come to the movie to see something. They want to be pleased. They don't want to be conned out of what it is. And so with Savage Dog, when I got the chance to direct again, I said, okay, I'm going to throw every single actor that I can rein in, from Kung Lee to Marco Zaror to Vladimir Kulich. I'm just going to bring them all in and beg on my hands and knees to get them on set. I went out to Mark Dacascos. I took him to dinner. He turned me down. There's a few others that turned me down. And then with action, I'm just going to give them every bit of action I can. Interesting, gnarly, real action with special effects and special physical effects and makeup effects and blood and gore. And we're just going to put everything on. And at the very least, it'll be the most violent blancmange, of sequences, and hopefully someone will take something out of it. It did really good. Did gangbusters business. People liked it. It's not a particularly fantastic movie, I don't think, but the result of how much it cost and what it was, I'm extraordinarily proud of it. And it started my career again. So as much as anything, if you talk about the intellectual side of being able to have watched those great masters at work, and the realization that I didn't want to go back to not working again, I needed to make films that were commercial. You mix those two things together, and perhaps that was the reason for a change in quality from Savage Dog onwards.
Interesting thing about Savage Dog as well, and I speak to a lot of indie filmmakers, how they talk about trying to just use whatever resource they can get their hands on to make a movie. In regards to that film, I've heard you say, like, you're watching movies like, oh, there's a table that I own, there's my furniture, like anything that you had, like not only your personal stuff, like you're also like your material possessions, like you had anything you can you put into this film, because like this was your kind of like comeback film, because you did the package like a few 4 or 5 years maybe before that, and now you've done this film. So it was pretty much about everything you had, put it in there. And I think sometimes when it comes to making a movie, that's what you have to do. I mean, you know, I was just talking to a young filmmaker last week, 24 years old, and he's like, I had access to this and had access to that and this and that and what have you. The only thing he kind of spent money on was to make sure he was surrounded by a good crew, because he was so young. He wanted to have like experience around him, but
Smart
everything
young
else was
man.
just about just everything else is just like whatever you get your hands on, throw in there. And so Savage Dog clearly was a movie where you did that. That was all you in all aspects of your being at that time.
Yeah. Yes, it was. Like when I left at the end of each night, the truck was just packed because it was everything from wardrobe, as you say, wardrobe to furniture to guns to swords to knives to the little skulls and bits and pieces on the desk, record players. Anyway, yeah, no, sometimes yeah, I mean, everyone has to do that. That's part of it. I still like to do that though. I still like to sneak little things in, photos and things into the shot that if people know a little bit about the film, but you can get caught up with that. And I don't. What I More important is to obviously make as good a movie as possible, not get too caught up on your own, your own supposed, mythology or ego. It can be tricky at times, though.
I read in an interview you did years ago that you have to kind of like this script where it was kind of like you described it kind of like a version of Barry Lyndon set during the California Gold Rush. Sounds intriguing. Is that something that you still have in the drawer or something you still have in the back burner? Is that something you might
I
work
don't
on
know.
in the
I
future?
don't know. The script's there. It's called Breed. It's a very, very interesting script. I'd like to do it. I keep fantasizing over it, but you've got to be careful because there are certain films that if they misfire, they'll have taken you such a lot of time to get going and cost such a lot that you may not make another movie. I thought that was going to happen to me after Boudica. I got very lucky to get straight into Chief of Station. But it's tricky. I would like to make that movie at some point. We'll see. We'll see if I can get the right actors together to be in it, where it'll make its money back based upon their names. Then it mitigates a lot of the risk involved. But I was also presented another script shortly after that one that dealt with the same time period, but did it really, really well in a way that was even more filmable. So we'll see. It's very tough to get westerns going. On Thieves Highway, I was told every day to reduce the amount of shots where guys were wearing cowboy hats because
Mm.
apparently it's the kiss of death for foreign market to have a cowboy hat in your film. Uh, it works relatively well for domestic, or it has no negative effects, but it has negative effects, and it was quite a battle. That's why he loses his hat midway through. And, it's
Interesting.
it's a strange thing. It's very tough to get them going. It's a battle. It's a battle to do it. And you've really got to work hard to get financing for those kind of films. If you look at the budget to a lot, we see a lot of westerns coming out, and you look at the budget on them, they're very small. They're very, usually not with big names, and it's a tricky business we're in, Matthew.
Um,
Sometimes passion projects aren't the ones that get the green light.
Another thing that you're working on, like you're constantly prolific in you have a number of films up above and below, something that's in post-production. You've got other things as well in the fire, so to speak. Something I'm really interested in because this is something you haven't really done that much of. The Pendragon Cycle, the Daily Wire show that's coming out soon. You directed a couple episodes on that. Something kind of different for you in that you do looking more kind of like a streaming kind of TV series. It's fantasy. It's like set in the time of King Arthur and all that stuff as well. A very kind of different kind of landscape, very different setting for you to do. Is that something, one of the reasons why you want to take on doing a couple episodes of that project is try to do something different and work on something that is outside of um, the Jesse V. Johnson wheelhouse?
I very much want to get into TV. I enjoy it. I like working. I was in the south of Spain. I had been prepping a film for 9 weeks. The film fell apart, and I was in Bilbao, no, north of Spain, sorry, Bilbao, realizing that I just wasted 9 weeks of my life,
Hmm.
scouting, all the things you do in prep for a film, the SAG strike and all that kind of stuff had caused havoc with it. And I got a call to go, saying, if you happen to be in Europe, do you want to zip over to Hungary and just meet with these guys? They have bitten off more than they can chew and need a third director to come in and take some of the workload off. And so it was really not much of a decision process. I jumped on the plane and was there by the afternoon. I was in Budapest by the afternoon, and uh, they had seen the trailer for Boudica, which dealt with legions and horses and lots of visual effects and slightly fantastical aspect to uh, the world of 2,000 years ago, and they asked me to come on board. So I was very lucky to be there. It was a terrific crew. They had a lot of money on it, which meant got to work with some just wonderful, wonderful creatives with a lot of toys that I've never been able to afford in the past. So I had most incredible sort of 4 or 5 months of my life directing in places that I had wanted to visit for years. The Dolomites and the Gran Sasso area in northern Italy, and then back to Budapest again, where I'd shot with Aaron on Chief of Station. So it was really, really exciting and a fun adventure. I think the show will be good. I had no place in writing any of it, and I take the scripts that I normally make and they become my own if they're not already my own from the start. So
Hmm.
this was an exercise for me in shooting what was on the page. with showrunner and a producer there, and I saw the whole thing as an incredible learning venture for me. And if you want to go into television, the director is no longer the king of the castle. He's, the writer and the showrunner are above you, and in many cases, the star is has more creative say than you do. So I wanted to learn a little bit about that world and see if I fitted into it, and had to pay some bills, and I felt really quite at home doing it, and quite enjoyed it. I don't know how much of it I'll do, but it was good to do for that period, especially after chasing the windmills of this picture in Spain that had just literally imploded in front of me and left me a little bit upset, emotionally and psychologically. So it was good to get to work there in an environment, that was really, really rich, wind machines and special effects. And I had a scene with 55 men on horseback with swords and stuntmen. I mean, that's a very, very rare privilege to be able to have 55 horses and stuntmen in a scene and have them charge and galloping, and in the countryside and in the snow. It was a brilliant adventure, and loved every minute of it. Really, I didn't really know who Daily Wire were prior to doing it. So obviously a political element to it all, but the show is not political. It's not. It's very it makes great lengths to be apolitical. This particular show, uh, which is important, for me, because I'm not necessarily a political director, and it's not my cup of char on the whole to align to one side or another. I don't like that. I like the vagaries of life a little more.
Mm,
Uh,
definitely.
so that was
Well,
my take on it. I was very lucky to be there, and lucky they had me.
I can't wait to see what you
Uh,
do with it because it's the whole kind of like King Arthur, Knights of the Round Table kind of story. I absolutely always loved that story, but I always found that when it came to adaptations for a film or TV, the only one that really kind of I really liked was the John Borman 1981, 1980 film. I'm a fan of that movie.
I love it.
You mentioned,
It's incredible. When I was growing up, Vic's right hand stuntman for a lot of his pictures was an Irish stuntman called Bronco McLaughlin, who did a lot of the stunts on Excalibur. I think I think every time you see a night come off, it's Bronco McLaughlin, and I used to bug him as a kid, asking him about the making of it and how it was to work with John Boorman. It's such a unpleasant, hate stuntmen. But it was a pivotal film for me. I loved it.
Me
There's
too.
not
So I
not
can't wait to
many
see
else
what
here.
Can't wait to see what Pendragon Cycle's like because, like I said, love the story. I love to see what you're going to do, what your episodes are like. I can't wait to watch them, and that's next year. I think that's coming out. But before then, for everyone listening, December 12th in select theaters across the US, Thieves Highway. Watch it, enjoy it, support these kind of films. It's really important, especially these days. We've supposedly every bloody streaming service buying every bloody studio that we have movies like this in a theater for people to watch. It comes out later, December 16, video on demand. Look, you can watch it either way, but I'm telling people to watch it on the big screen. Check out the craft, check out the awesome fight scene I was talking about in the film, check out Aaron Eckhart, which to me, I always find Aaron to be, like I said, I'm a big fan of him. I think he's just a fantastic leading man in movies, especially when it comes to kind of like the film type of films that he's doing with you in a film in Thieves Highway. And Jesse Johnson, I thank you so very much for your time today. It's been a pleasure to talk all things your career and your work and your love of cinema. And like I said, I've been a fan of your work for such a long time, so it's always a pleasure for me to be able to talk to the people that create the films that I love to watch. So thank you so very much for your time, and best of luck in regards to your other films coming up, and for the release of Thieves Highway. I hope it does really well for you, and I can't wait to see what you got next.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content.